One of the attorneys here at Haug, Farrar, and Franco, law firm based in Ocean Springs, Mississippi. Our firm practices in several major areas, including personal injury, workers' comp, criminal law, general civil litigation, and also family and custody work. Today I'd like to address one of the primary areas in the family topic or category of law, and that relates to a divorce. We have a lot of divorce cases and clients at any one time, and they often start with a similar question, and that is this: can we get divorced in the state of Mississippi? Can I get a divorce? Can I legally obtain what I think is in my best interests, or what we think is in our best interests? So today I'm going to go over an overview of the two types of divorce cases that are allowed, and discuss what we like to describe as the four legs of the divorce stool. Now, no one enters into a marriage with the expectation that a divorce will follow, but sometimes, either through necessity or by agreement of the parties that that's in their best interests or the best interests of their family, a divorce is what needs to take place. But just because one of the parties thinks that a divorce is appropriate or even necessary doesn't mean that he or she can necessarily get a divorce. In Mississippi, as with most states, a divorce is a contract. Like many other forms of contract between two people, that comes with certain rights and privileges and limitations. Now, importantly, in Mississippi, there is no such thing as a legal separation. Some states provide for that. Mississippi does not. In Mississippi, you're either married or you're not. There are also certain residency requirements that must be met. In order to petition the court for a divorce in Mississippi, at least one of the parties must be a resident of the state of Mississippi for at least 6 months prior to the filing of the petition for divorce. Now, one notable exception to that involves military families. If a couple is transferred to Mississippi on orders, then the Mississippi courts have jurisdiction immediately. Now, in Mississippi, there are two types of divorce. There are two ways that parties can get divorced. One is irreconcilable differences, or no-fault divorce. And then the other is the fault-based divorce, often referred to as the grounds divorce or divorce for grounds. Now, we'll look at the ID divorce first and discuss the four legs of the divorce stool. The ID divorce is by far the easier. It's less expensive, it's less emotionally taxing, and less disruptive on the parties and their families and children. But importantly, in order to be candidates for an ID divorce, the parties must agree on each of the four legs of the divorce stool. The first, namely, will there be a divorce? Secondly, how will property and debts be divided or allocated between the parties? Third, whether one party or the other will receive spousal support or alimony. And fourth, and this is if there are minor children involved, who will have custody, what will visitation look like, and how much child support, if any, will be provided. Importantly, for an ID divorce, there's a 60-day waiting period following the first initial filing for a divorce for irreconcilable differences grounds. Usually there's only one attorney that handles the petition, even though the attorney only represents one of the parties. The idea is that the parties are filing jointly. Also, there's usually only one party in court. Excuse me, and there's no adverse testimony, no finger pointing, no name calling in open court. It proceeds in an orderly fashion, often through the use of a special master, which can avoid appearing in open court for the most part altogether. Generally, if the parties agree and things move smoothly, you could expect to have a divorce on irreconcilable differences within about 75 days or so altogether. Now, if one of those legs of the four-legged divorce stool is not met, is not agreed to, then the matter is contested. It's referred to as a contested matter that proceeds in a different track than the ID divorce. Now, this topic, or this blog, only addresses one of those four legs of the stool, and that's whether or not there will be a divorce. Generally, you can think of this issue the same way you can most other legal cases that are in the courts. You have to prove your case if you want the divorce and the other party doesn't, generally by a preponderance of the evidence, although there are exceptions to that. But that's like winning, think of it like winning a car wreck injury case or a breach of contract. Your burden of proof is to prove that more likely than not, you're entitled to a divorce. And that is that you can establish one of the grounds enumerated under Mississippi law for granting a divorce. Now, depending on how you break them down, you can generally think about it like there are 12 separate grounds allowed for under Mississippi law. If you can't prove by a preponderance of the evidence, generally, that you're entitled to a divorce on one of these grounds, then in Mississippi, you can't get a divorce no matter how bad you want it unless the other side agrees. So what are those grounds? Perhaps the most common and the one that's thought of most frequently is adultery. That is sexual relations between someone who's married with someone outside of that marriage. Now, one note on adultery, you don't have to have caught in the act evidence. That's often hard to obtain. With the right facts, circumstances, and legal arguments, a court can infer the act of adultery and grant a divorce. A second ground, and if adultery isn't the most common, then this probably is, that's habitual, cruel, and inhuman treatment. That refers to conduct that's not in isolation, but is extended over some period of time. It's either physical in nature or so severe that a party should not be expected to endure it. It can include emotional, verbal, as well as physical abuse and treatment. Another ground is desertion. That's generally regarded as the willful, continued, and obstinate refusal to return to the marital home for at least a period of 1 year. Importantly, the party claiming desertion also has to be able to demonstrate that he or she would have been willing to take the other party back during that year and that the other party refused. Another ground is natural impotency. Another ground is habitual drunkenness. Another is habitual and excessive use of illegal drugs. Another is being sentenced to a penitentiary and not being pardoned before being sent there. Another is mental illness or an intellectual disability at the time of the marriage if the party claiming or seeking the divorce didn't know about the infirmity. Another is bigamy. That is marriage to another person at the time of the marriage or the supposed marriage between the parties. Another is pregnancy of the wife by another person at the time of the marriage if the husband did not know of that pregnancy. Also, incest is a ground that allows for a divorce. And then an incurable mental illness where the party has been under the regular treatment for that illness and a mental institution is involved. So generally, those are the grounds for divorce in Mississippi that come into play if the parties cannot agree to one of the legs, the four legs of the divorce stool, that is, whether or not there should be a divorce. Sometimes in Mississippi, it can be difficult to obtain a divorce. People often say that it's far easier to get married than it is to get a divorce. And there's a lot of truth in that, and that's because of the laws surrounding the eligibility and procedural steps involved in pursuing a divorce, whether it's agreed to or not. Every situation is different. Every case is unique. If you find yourself in need of a consultation and you have questions about a divorce, whether or not you're entitled to a divorce, whether or not you can obtain a divorce, or whether or not you and your spouse meet the requirements for the ID divorce, the irreconcilable differences or uncontested divorce, give us a call here at Haug, Farrar, and Franco. We offer free initial consultations, and we look forward to meeting with you and seeing if we can help you out with your legal needs. Thanks so much for paying attention, for listening, tuning in. Look for other blogs on topics related to divorce and custody, as well as blogs and articles that we have put out on the other subject matters that we practice, including personal injury, workers' comp, criminal law, and general civil litigation. Thank you so much, and have a great day.